Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the $2.6 trillion business of sports. You're on the record, our ongoing series with U.S. mayors who have jurisdiction over all professional sports franchises in their community. We did this at the U.S. Conference of Mayors leadership meeting with David Holt in L.A., All-Star Weekend in basketball in February. So successful, we've added to the list. They all have common interests, but they all have issues that are different as well. Anaheim, California, Mighty Ducks, very successful at that building, wonderful ownership, very harmonious. Angels, in the middle of negotiations as well. What do they do with their lease expiring? How do they move forward? Are the Angels up for sale? What about the labor negotiations? A lot of issues for Ashleigh Aitken. She's the 48th mayor of Anaheim and 2022 first woman elected in the 167-year history of Anaheim, transforming the region, visitor industry, certainly on her top priority list. Community Service Board from 2011 got into politics, and a lawyer and also a prosecutor. She was president of the Orange County Bar Association, certainly knows how to mix it up in the rough and tumble world of litigation, but also in the issue of politics, not bad either. And by the way, her history, BC rugby player, law degree at USC, mixing it up athletically, politically, in the courtroom, certainly someone very significant to have on one end of representing the public on the Angels and Ducks negotiation, and as development, understanding what it means to bring in youth sports, sports debate, but also the mix of the professional sports franchises in a mega tourist industry. You just have to go to Disneyland, and it's a stone's throw from the stadium where the Angels play. Anyway, enough of that. Let's hear from Ashleigh Aitken. Mayor Ashleigh Aitken of Anaheim. How are you?
I'm great, sir. Thank you, Professor, for having me.
Oh, that's great. I'm really, really happy for you to be here. So fast forward the 48th mayor of Anaheim, but also the 167-year history of Anaheim. First woman, how's that happen?
You know, I think it's long overdue.
Yeah.
Anaheim woke up.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's such an honor. I'm Anaheim born and raised, Terrell. And I just realized, I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for Anaheim teachers and Anaheim schools and neighborhoods. And so I was just really excited as the mom of 3 girls that if I wanted to see the change that I believed in, I had to take that first step.
Well, but your first step is even before that, the Community Service Board, 2 years, 2011, 2013. At that point, did you decide, I want to be mayor, or I'm never going to be involved in politics the rest of my life, or the middle ground?
I started my first job out of college, was working on Capitol Hill for, at the time, Democratic leader Dick Gephardt. So I spent a lot of time on other people's congressional campaigns, and I left that experience saying, only crazy people run for office. I would never do that.
How ironic is that?
Fast forward a couple decades, and here I am.
Yeah, and so is this a life passion? Is this an interim step to another political rung on the ladder, or how do you view the mayorship of Anaheim?
I think being mayor is the greatest job that you can have.
Yeah.
I mean, people are most impacted by what happens a couple hundred feet outside their front door, and I feel like I can help with those issues. I like to say I don't know how to solve global warming, but I can make sure your trash is picked up and your parks are safe.
Well, nobody knows how to solve global warming, but everybody at the dynamic conferences of the U.S. Conference of Mayors certainly deals with the people's problems.
Yes.
And that's part of the issue, too. So before we get into U.S. Conference of Mayors and all the sports stuff, Aitken law firm, personal injury, huge practice. What's your percentage allocation between being a mayor and being a lawyer these days? Or is it
It's like pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving and it's shrinking.
Yeah, how it gets.
But yeah, I came to work at Aitken Cohn doing plaintiffs only trial work after I left the U.S. Attorney's Office. And it's been an amazing career to fight for victims. and now fight for consumers on the civil side. But when I got elected, I knew to do the job right, as with most jobs,
Yep.
you've got to devote more time than is asked for. And so it's been a pleasure. And the best part about my husband being my partner in life is he's also my partner in law. So I can slide a couple of files across the desk when I need extra help.
Did you slide the file across the desk in 2015 when you said, I'll be president of the Southern California or the Orange County Bar, and it's not going to take that long. That's okay.
No, that was 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't until 2022 that I really started taking a step back and embracing my role of counsel.
So you got some incredible perspective with which to bring to the city of Anaheim and the politics of it. U.S. Conference of Mayors, I'll talk about Anaheim. It's an amazing organization. This leadership group brings together every eligible mayor, but functionally 60, 70 mayors sitting across the table and solving or at least assessing local problems, all from ICE and immigration to public-private partnerships and sports facilities and everything in between. It's unbelievable.
It is. And what I think is so amazing is our cities are in different states, different size towns, different geographic locations. But a lot of us have so many of the same problems that we are facing, whether it's affordable housing, how to deal with the homelessness crisis, how to deal with growing healthcare costs, and of course, things like good fiscal management, where it comes to public-private partnerships and or how to balance your budget.
So let's talk about sports facilities broadly defined, even infrastructure. It's now creatively defining infrastructure in a way that's different maybe than it used to be pre-COVID, and people are more willing to accept public-private partnerships in a broader definition of a way, which ought to give more flexibility to solving problems. On the other hand, owners are coming a little more tight with their demands as well. I don't want to generalize, but you got two interesting franchises in your city, and I know you treat them a bit differently as you move forward.
Yeah, we are really blessed to have the Samueli family that is the owner of the Anaheim Ducks. They've been great partners to the city. They are benevolent when it comes to investing in the youth of our community, and they are right now in the midst of a multi-billion-dollar project that's going to bring in commercial space, restaurant space, hotels, performing arts centers. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the OC vibe looks like when their creative team and building team is done.
OC vibe would be immeasurably enhanced if the Angels did some of the same things, right? And
I forgot to mention there's a host site for the LA 28 Olympics.
Yeah.
It was vibe.
Yeah.
And of course, across the street, we have the Angels organization that has been in the city for decades. And we struggled a bit more to find a path forward in how to develop that land. So it's an interesting relationship in that the city owns 153 acres, that parcel, as well as, which includes the 20-acre Angel Stadium itself. So we are, continually tried to take stabs at working with ownership to find something that's in the best interests of the taxpayers. There's not a lot of passion in the city of Anaheim, as not with taxpayers, I think, nationwide, to build a billionaire a stadium. But I think that with creative public-private partnerships, land use changes, it could be something that we could use that blueprint that's going on across the street to really make something exciting at Angel Stadium.
It used to be, and Dodger Stadium, it broke them all a little bit, but the old vet in Philly, Pittsburgh, some of the old stadiums, when you were but a child in Boston, a lot of people thought about raise the property tax, millage, build a round stadium, dual use, and we're done. Today, it's a lot more zeros, but there are a lot more creative opportunities to do deals too. So it rests on creative approaches, not only inside the stadium, but the infrastructure surrounding it, I would guess.
Yeah, there's several avenues that you can take. So, the city can retain ownership of the land and enter a long-term, lease agreement. We can sell the land outright at fair market value to a private developer that wants to then really activate, the area.
That's also pretty damn valuable land.
Absolutely. Or we can do something together. What my number one priority is if you are going to ask for any type of land use changes, any type of entrance into bond relationships or public-private partnerships with the city, the community givebacks need to be there. It could be in the form of, open space parks, affordable housing, a youth sports park that really will be activated year round. It is quite a revenue generator for cities. If anyone has youth, I have a kid at club soccer. I can tell you it's not a cheap venture to get involved in. But uniquely to California, because the city owns the land, we're under the Surplus Land Act. So we cannot even enter into negotiations with a private landowner until we first offer it to for sale to affordable housing, which has to be about 25%. So that's another layer that we're going to have to approach as we go through this deal.
Interesting perspective. But when you think about all of the success stories of public-private partnerships where stadiums and arenas are actually catalyst for a whole host of urban development, then that piece, it's not easy, but at least it is in the panoply of things that you could possibly do long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the history of what some, former councils have really aired in their leadership and their fiduciary duty to the taxpayers, my number one priority is the residents. And if it's not fair to the residents, then it's not something that I can support. But as as you mentioned, you look across the street at the OC Vibe that paid fair market value for the land, partners with the city. They get almost all of their stuff done. I think 100% of their things have been 7-0 votes. That is a good partner.
Clearly a good partner. And now we enter into a very interesting time, baseball specifically, where they've got some labor issues. You've got the haves and the have-nots out front. The Angels are kind of in the middle of the pack, but they could be higher, could be lower. And you've got negotiations with a whole bunch of different entities. It almost is like, from a business perspective, that you have the Dodgers, Cubs, the Yankees, Mets, and kind of like then everybody else maybe. And it's kind of hard to develop a long-term commitment with some labor issues hanging over. How do you juggle all of that as a business person, let's say?
Well, I don't get obviously involved in the management of the team. I would not want to be the GM of the Angels right now. But I think it's a really trying time in baseball, and it makes me sad. My dad is a lifelong Pittsburgh Pirates fan. They're on the lower end of the cap. I mean, I think you compare what the Pirates spend on their team versus one player with the LA Dodgers.
What is it? Haley's County, Solar Equinox? They'll be back 34 years from now. They'll be right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sad for the game because you want every single team to feel like, those fans are a part and have a chance at America's pastime. But the dynamics of the game have changed, and money is something that you're going to have a lot of if you want to secure the talent. So I think it's something that is a challenge, but not a city challenge.
Yeah, and when you put on a business development hat as a business person, I heard in a lot of discussions that you don't want to be the mayor that is tagged with losing a professional sports franchise, but you've got to be fiscally responsible at the same time. And sometimes it's very difficult to balance that. I understand. You all are in a position where you're going to get some interesting spin-off from the Olympics, and there are a lot of benefits to it. How difficult is it to convince the constituency that sports is big business?
Well, I think in Anaheim, there are people that are lifelong diehard Angels fans. Me is one. I grew up in the city of Anaheim. I've always been an Angels fan. But those threats have never worked with me, and I don't think that they work for the people of Anaheim. I mean, we're blessed in that more famous than the Anaheim Ducks or the Anaheim Angels is Disneyland.
Right.
And we have 25 million people that come to our city for the theme park and the resort district. And, we've built these relationships with major stakeholders in the city that if it's something I think people realize in Anaheim, we know our worth. We don't have to be, you're not going to bend us over a barrel because you're the only game in town.
Yeah. By the way, that's a prosecutor talking. That is a prosecutor talking. That's just not a mayor. It's a prosecutor talking. The other part of, and you talk to mayors who we know from a lot of generations, they're saying one of the hardest things to sell and prove, yet one of the easiest things to kind of generally understand is that sports, entertainment, tourism, important for the quality of life. And for industry relocation, they look at the full benefit of in a community, especially in a tourist-oriented community. You're fighting as arms race with cities that want the next mega event or next franchise. I understand that's part of the role in selling. Sometimes it's more difficult than others, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we've always prided ourselves on being a city that is economically diverse. Now, obviously, tourism makes up a very large part of our general fund. Since the park opened in 1955, it changed the landscape of Anaheim for the better. But I think it's all about partnerships and investments. It's all about seeing how the resort at Disneyland invests in our schools, invests in our kids, invests in our residents, because they know that's their workforce. They know that they need to provide housing for their workers. They know they need to work with local leaders to benefit and grow. And so I think we're all have the same goal in mind. And that's to continue to grow and have a beautiful city that people want to live and raise their family in.
Do you look at Angels and well, let's put it in the same category right now, but I know the families are a little bit different. Angels, Ducks, future, and say, man, these negotiations are really, really going to be tough. But at the end of the day, it's really important for us. So buckle it up and let's go. I mean, is that one of the ways that you're wake up in the morning relative to sports franchises?
I think the negotiations I've had with the Ducks have been wonderful.
Yeah.
So from that experience, I wish that every mayor had a owner that is invested in the community and the surrounding cities as the Ducks ownership is. And I think, when it comes to the Angels, I'm looking forward to a similar deal. And I want my baseball team to be involved in my schools. I want it to be involved in our neighborhoods because I want them to have just create generations of loyal fans that will be at Angel games long after I'm gone and long after the current ownership is gone.
That's a long time from now. By the way, COVID, used to react to this, and I kind of feel this when you travel the country. There is an added responsibility post-COVID recovery. Just like 100 years ago after Spanish flu, a lot of stadiums were done with public money saying it's got to help recovery. This is one of those building blocks. You got to get moving pretty quickly. And just like 100 years later, do you think the kind of post-COVID recovery, I know you could go on plans, puts kind of an added obligation, not just for communities, but for teams to kind of suck it up, get with the program, and move forward together?
I would hope so. We have a tourism bureau called Visit Anaheim that I'm very supportive and involved in because we are trying to attract people to Anaheim, knowing that they can use their dollars and go a lot of places in Southern California. So we really want to emphasize what makes us special. And if you can go to the amusement park and have a couple magical days, but in that same weekend, see a baseball game and a hockey game when they overlap, that is a perfect weekend. And so we always reach out to our sports partners to, work with us in attracting visitors, especially, families to the city of Anaheim.
All right, a couple of really important questions based on your bio. First of all, we know the members of the U.S. rugby team pretty well, and one of the conversations I had with Alec Kelter yesterday was, man, I love training in Southern California, and they're coming back. She's going to do it again. I assume part of your ticket deal is going to be to watch since you were a rugby player at BC, right?
I was a scrum half for my 4 years at Boston College.
How good were you?
I was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was pretty good. I lived with my my front line, with my hooker as well. And if I ever got hit, I would talk to those ladies and say, "Your one job is to make sure that."
Sounds like Sidney Crosby. It sounds like hockey.
Yeah,
Get that sound.
exactly. I get hit, I get pissed.
Yeah, of course you do. And then finally, what is all right? So what's the toughest? I mean, beating the hell out of somebody at rugby, getting your law degree at USC, winning a law suit, or finishing negotiations with the Angels.
Oh gosh. Okay, I was gonna throw in an extra one. It'll say being the mother of three, mother of three teenage girls.
Do sports.
However, I think I am hopeful that the hardest thing, is just the stress that comes around not being able to fix every single problem that's in the city of Anaheim. Those are the kind of things that keep me up at night. But I'm hopeful for the Angels negotiation. I'm hopeful that we can find some common ground and they can realize what a gem Anaheim is, and that they want to stay because the fan base in Anaheim is just unbelievable.
Tell you why else they want to stay. They want to stay because you have a mayor that believes in public-private partnerships, and based on knowing some mayors across the country, they better work fast because they got a good deal with this particular mayor. Book it, ladies and gentlemen. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, speak with you soon.
On the record, what a week and what weeks to follow. We've had players. We've had the beginning of March Madness. Obviously, the NBA and NHL heating up. NFL frenzy, they call free agency, and on and on. So let's take a look at the opening bell and opening drive, the big five issues that have a significant impact long term. Number one, Duke, Arizona, Florida, Michigan. The top seeds, Duke number one, riding that 11-game winning streak. But it's so much more off the court as well. Open Doors, the NIL founder in many ways, talks about a $932 million NIL basketball allocation alone for men's and women's. 540% increase in blue blood transfer money, not only for the top programs, but the top players in the top programs. They also said that if you transfer to a top from a mid-major, you're going to get 40% more than your brethren who stay at their existing school and get NIL money. For the men and women as well, it is a boom for the communities. Over 15 venues on men's side ending in Indy, 15 venues on the women's side ending in Phoenix, and it only just begins. Over $202 billion of economic activity, and that is huge. That's number one. Number two, affecting college sports as well. Senators Eric Schmidt of Missouri and Maria Cantwell of Washington introduced an amendment on the Senate floor to the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961. It's the one that allows the NFL to pool its TV money. Going to do the same thing, the bill says, for the big conferences in college sports. Give them a boatload of revenue to be able to generate economic impact and also retool governance, along with a 14-member oversight board and a promise of billions of dollars in revenue. That may be the leverage that gets the trick done as far as the ability to organize. We'll just have to see. That's number two. Number three, Boston Legacy FC draws more than 30,000 for a recent women's home opener. Sports momentum in Boston obviously increases. Not just that, but women's soccer generally. Boston and Denver were the co-expandees. Denver expecting 50,000 for their home opener. The end of the day, the WNBA Connecticut Suns moving to Boston, and it looks like years ago they draw 3,000 for a soccer game in that city for women. Now the sky is the limit. Certainly a change in Boston sports, Boston women's sports. Next, reports of NFL's Paramount negotiations with a 50 to 60% increase in rights fees as the league pushes to begin their deal. Paramount paying $2.1 billion annually today. There's a reopener in 2029. They're willing to get the certainty and be the first ones on the block to get their deal done. But it's going to cost them maybe 50% higher, maybe $3 billion. But it also then sets the stage for other negotiations. Paramount will probably, and David Ellison, trade certainty for bucks, and the NFL is all the better. That's final issue as well. And then number five, Magic Johnson. Well, he is in the LA ownership group, but he and businessman Mike Bellin and Andre Cleveland and others met with Governor Lombardo in Vegas last month to talk the specific terms of expansion, venue, structure, organization. Unlike other expansion opportunities, this may not be a whether it's Vegas or Seattle but when, because most people assume that is a foregone conclusion, replacing the Supersonics and becoming the fourth team in Vegas. Not automatic, but it certainly looks like a sure bet. That's the top five opening drive. Next up, five to watch. How about FIBA? Women's basketball, the 3-on-3 component of women's basketball. The media value for sponsors estimated to be $220 million, $290 million, and that's heading even to the Olympics, which will be more. 418 broadcast hours in the year before this, 48% increase, 118 million engagements, 3x3 World Tour, 19 challengers, 15 events. Clearly, it's a big number. Not just women's and men's basketball, but the different iterations of it carrying the day. That's number one. Number two, how about Roger Federer? $1.1 billion of net worth. He joins the exclusive Billionaires Club, 20 majors, 103 tour titles, 310 weeks at number one. And also, he has morphed into a boardroom phenom, not just a billionaire. Look for him to add alongside his winnings incredible equity investments, not just in the tennis world, but in the equity world, the tech world, and the sports world. That's number two. Number three, the Packers, by the way, are at a crossroads. CEO Ed Policy can't use traditional debt or financing. He's a publicly owned entity, remember, but he says more off-season events at Lambeau Field, more sponsorship, sales, and higher ticket prices, maybe even $4 to $22 per game. But at the end of the day, this is a museum, and you got to keep the team in Green Bay, and they can't move. So this is the way you do it. But a $600 million reserve fund that the Packers have allow them to play around a little bit, even though they don't have the flexibility that other teams do. That's number three. Number four, the World Baseball Classic, an incredible event that no one saw the juggernaut coming. Even the pool play win over Mexico with the U.S. 5 million viewers on Fox and Fox Deportes, the biggest audience by far ever, and that's only in the preliminary round. 1.48 million was the highest pool play number. For a great demand much earlier in the tournament, we're going to see what those final ratings are as U.S. reaches the final game. And then number five, NHL and Germany. Ottawa Senators, Chicago Blackhawks, December 18 and 20 in Dusseldorf. They played previously in 2011. Germany's National Hockey Day, NHL Global Fan Tour, a Stanley Cup appearance, a whole host of issues that Gary Bettman and folks are targeting, not just for European fans, but specifically Germany as well. And that's number five. A lot to look for in the future. We'd like to thank Callie Kazar for helping me put the show together. What a busy week, and more busy weeks to come. Like to thank you all for listening and watching. Join us once again next week. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, $2.6 billion business of sports. Speak with you then.